Well, hey there, and welcome back to Finish This Game. My name is Ben. In this video, we are going to talk through some kind of updates or modifications you could potentially make for Game 1 of the Finish This Game project series. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so quick review. Game 1 is primarily a set collection mechanic, and there's also a matching mechanic similar to like what Uno is. And so we have 36 cards, 36 tokens, and a small board. And that's what you had to work with. And I had a preliminary design, some rules, and you're kind of working within those confines to now make this game your own. Make it a complete game. It's just a skeleton as I gave it to you, and so you need to be adding things. And so this video, I'm going to talk through some of the possibilities, just some brainstorms I had to hopefully get the gears turning if you need some help in some of these areas. And I have it broken down into 4 main areas that we're going to be talking about. There's the mechanics, the theme, some rules, and the score conditions. Those are the main areas that we're going to discuss here. So let's jump into mechanics first. As I said before, the goal here is not to just continually be adding mechanics to make it a more complex game. That's not always the best solution, but there is some tweaking that can be done and to really figure out what type of game you want to play. Now, really, I just have one idea here. As I was playing the game, I thought what would make it more interesting is possibly if instead of everyone taking a turn and playing their card in order to collect their resource, what if it was simultaneous action? What if everyone picked the card they want to play and then they simultaneously reveal, and so then you have some conflict. You're creating some conflict in the game where what if 2 people play in the same one? Well, then the high card would probably win. Or what if one person matched a number and one person matched a color? You'd have to figure out a rule for resolving that kind of conflict. But that creates a really interesting dynamic suddenly of saying, well, there's one that's clearly the most valuable, but I don't have the highest card to go for that, and so maybe it's more worth it for me to go to another one. But what if the other player doesn't have a high card either, in which case I should go for the most valuable one? So to me, that would be a really easy addition to this game that would make it a little bit more dynamic and a little more player versus player interaction, which could be cool. Of course, there's other things you could add too. Many things I thought of would have required also adding additional components. And so I think this is a really simple solution. But if you have another idea for a simple mechanic to add, I'd love to hear it in the comments. The next area is theme. I gave it to you completely abstract, and so it's your job to give it some type of flavor. Now, obviously, there's some games that have no theme. They are just abstract. But I think a game like this would work best with some type of world it's in, some type of action you're doing. So I just wrote down a few ideas that I wanted to share with you. And the way I thought about these themes was just thinking, what is a set of things I would like to collect, right? What would be fun? And so there's some really obvious ones, right? Like jewels or spices, things like that have definitely been done before. But at the same time, I like collecting jewels, and so maybe that would be a good, simple theme to put onto this core game. You could also easily do flowers or plants, right? Maybe you're a florist and you're trying to make the perfect bouquet or something like that. That could certainly fit in here. You could do something with candy. I did have one idea that was really my favorite, which would be, what if you were like a thrift store picker, right? You're going through and you're trying to get the best deals, and so you have categories of items that you are trying to get in order to resell. So that, I think if I was going to develop this game further, I might explore that, just because I think there's an element of humor with that could be incorporated, as well as just maybe being interesting. Next is rules. What rules can we change, add, or modify that can make this a little bit more of a nuanced game? And I really just had 2 ideas with my own brainstorming. First would be to give some of these cards actions. Actions that must be taken when they are played. So, for instance, when you play this, everyone must pass their most valuable asset to the left, or something like that. Or when you play this, you remove any yellow cards from the board, or along those lines. And if you're modifying other rules, of course, you would have to dovetail this together so it would work well. But something where you can't just play a card without thinking through what are the implications of this card getting played. And I would like to do it so it's not just hurting other players, where it might potentially hurt you as well. And so you're balancing, is the thing I'm getting when I play this card more valuable than the thing I'm losing? And so to me, there's a lot of there's a lot of variability. There's a lot of potential there to make very different types of games depending on what kind of actions you add. Another rule I considered adding very simply would be, rather than just saying any color or any matching number, that it also, you needed to have a equal to or higher number on the card. So you can't just play any red card on a red card. It needed to be a red card with a higher number on it. Or if you were playing a different color, it would need to be a matching number. So that would just narrow your choices a little bit. As I've played the skeleton game a few times, it's just a little too easy. There's too many options for you to play. I'd like to narrow that down, and so adding this kind of ascending number rule would be an easy way to do that. And last, there's score conditions. Right now, it's just a linear scale where the circles are the least valuable and the stars are the most valuable, and everything in between is kind of ascending up. And so you want to collect more stars, you don't want as many circles. And so there's a few ways you could go about this, right? You could make circles more plentiful, or whatever resource that ends up being in your case, more plentiful, and stars less available. So someone's not going to be able to collect just the stars and win. They're going to need to get some more variety. That would be at the base level. You could do that very easily. But I think there's other ways too, and I have a few things I've kind of brainstormed that might be interesting. There's score conditions you've probably seen in games such as Sushi Go, where the player with the most of X category gets a certain number of points, and the player with the second most gets X number of points, and everybody else gets nothing. Or you could say the player with the most gets a certain amount, and the player with the least gets minus points. That would be another interesting way to go. You could also have more constraints, saying if you just get one of any item, that doesn't really do anything for you, but you need at least two to score. And so that would give people incentive to be going after certain kinds a little bit more. You could also say that there's a need for certain combinations of items in order to score points. So you're not just trying to get as many high-scoring items as possible. You need the specific combination of square, circle, and triangle in order to score a certain number of points. And maybe there's other ones. And you could even make this variable by adding a few cards to this game and saying, at the start of the game, deal out 3 of these condition cards, and that's what you're going after for this game. Or maybe those are bonuses. There's a lot of different ways you could go with this. In my case, if I was making this the thrift store game that I was talking about, the thrift store theme, maybe these would be clients that are looking for something specific. And so they're saying they need, something electronics, they need an antique, and they need an item of clothing. And so I need to bring them those things in order to score those points. I think, again, that's another kind of rich territory you could really explore. And last, there's a whole world of bonuses you could add, right? You could add bonuses for having the most of a certain category. You could add bonuses for having a monopoly or being the only player with a certain category. You could add bonuses for any player that gets at least one of every kind. Any conditions inside your game that a player can meet, you could have as bonuses. And so that will, throw a wrench into some people's works, that it's not just a linear scale. There are also criteria to be met as they're playing. So that's really just kind of off the top of my head, my own brainstorming session as I'm sitting here looking at these components and the way the game is set up. And hopefully you find some of those ideas interesting and you can apply them to your own ideas about this game. And now remember, the idea here is not just that I give you a print and play and you kind of mess around with it. I want to see you finish your game. So if you have ideas out of this video or previous videos and you want to write them down of how you would finish it, or even better, show me the next working prototype you made with the changes you made. I'd love to see it. Of course, you can always comment below this video, but the best way is to connect with me on Instagram and on Facebook. You can always find me there at Circle Canoe, and I really look forward to seeing what you make. Thanks for joining with me of Game 1 for Finish This Game. Really excited for what the series is going to do of building these games together, and I will see you in the next video.